Greetings cards are a multi-billion-dollar industry, and even though the market for them is gradually depreciating, they ain't going to be disappearing anytime soon. In recent years, the sending of cards has come under greater scrutiny. Yes, cards are biodegradable, however, far too many of them are adorned with novelty noises or plastic tidbits which have a devastating effect on the environment for these single-use items. We also have to consider the impact on our carbon footprint we have by sending them, whether they're going nationally or even globally. This has given rise to the use of sending e-cards to one another. However, without a doubt, actually receiving a physical card seems to carry more sentiment, more pleasure, more warmth than receiving something that's been constructed from ones and zeros. And oh, what's this? Oh, what sentiment, what pleasure, what warmth. I wonder what it says. To John, sorry about the memory loss, get well soon, love, Auntie Babs. Don't even recall having an Auntie Babs, and oh hello, what's this? A game printed on the card? Quick little announcement before we get underway that this video is a preview stroke review of an upcoming Kickstarter project. I got sent these games in the post from the Dark Imp, and I'm going to show you what's on offer and give a few of my opinions at the end of it. Check out the Kickstarter in the link below to find out any more information on how you can support it. Without further ado, let's get underway. On each card is a greeting space for you to write a lovely little message, or a rude one depending on what mood you are in, a set of instructions, a game board, and a section of components. Now for each game you are going to need to have scissors on hand, as you'll have to carefully cut out all of the player tokens. Furthermore, some games do require that little bit extra, but usually no more than a pen or a piece of paper. Now the Dark Imp's mantra is to encourage families into gaming, so all of the games on offer here are aimed at ages 8 and above and offer varying levels of complexity. Let's have a look at the first game. First up is Enemy Lines. In this game you've got to try and get 3 ships from your fleet to your opponent's start area. You begin by taking it in turns, placing out your armada, all played out on an aquatic grid of the flag of the Netherlands? On a turn, you can move a ship a number of spaces equal to its size, rotate it by one of the ends, or try and sink an enemy ship by shunting into it. Rules for shunting though is that you're only allowed to sink something that is smaller than you. Oh, and beware though, if you shunt a ship, your ship sinks too, so it comes with a price. The game ends when one player gets 3 of their ships to the other side. Both players count up their scores. Don't forget though that the deeper into enemy lines you go, the greater the reward. Next is a party game called Splinter. This is a game that requires the most components, as each player needs their own pair of scissors and a sheet of paper. You'll play 8 rounds, and a player will choose a colour and number at random, which will tell them what task needs to be carried out. Each colour is arranged by a particular theme. Green activities are dexterous, like making paper balls to throw or make a paper aeroplane. Red ones require creative engineering skills by building tall towers or structures which can support small objects. And yellow and purple tasks ask you to be artistic. If you do draw any of these 2 colours, you redraw 2 more tokens to tell you which theme your design is about, which are labels on the lower part of each circle. Now, there is one big constraint to this. All 8 rounds must be carried out using the same single piece of paper. So, if there are tasks that ask you to cut out pieces, you must be careful not to deplete your resource. Players who do the best on each task score the most points. Up next is a cooperative game. Love a bit of cooperation, I does, called Guess How. Your team takes control of all of the pawns in the centre of the board, and your task is to get them to the corresponding colour in the opposite corners. Now, there is an interesting way of moving the characters. There is a draw pile of tokens, defined by colour, body shape, or facial expression. You can move any token in a straight line, 1 or 2 spaces, as long as the square you land on matches a feature of the token you have selected. Such as, if I picked a green token, I must be able to land on a green body. You discard the token you played by placing it on the board and cover up the space they just left, thus gradually reducing the board and your options, as you are no longer allowed to have a player occupy that space. If at any time you cannot make a legal move because your path has been blocked, or you don't want to use any of your options, then you can discard one to draw up another. You win the game as a team if you get all 4 pawns in the corresponding corners, or you collectively lose if you have had to discard 3 tokens. If you've enjoyed this game, there is a harder variant too, designed to stretch your thinking and decision making by giving you mission objectives. The 4th game is Snakes, Ladders, and a pogo stick. Now, everyone knows snakes and ladders, which is great when you are learning to count. However, once you have learned to count, the game offers you absolutely nothing of value. In steps this version, which uses snakes and ladders and brings in decision making. Each player has a number of workers, and you are going to take it in turns to spend them on the moves you're going to make. The majority of the decisions are based on moving forwards or backwards a certain number of spaces, or you can take the pogo stick, which gets you to bounce to the next pink space in front of you. If you can spend workers, you must use them, so you cannot decide to pass. So if you can only select a move that harms you, you must pick one of them. After each round, you then decide turn order. The person who selected turn advantage automatically goes first, and then it is arranged that whoever is in last place goes next, then the next person along with whoever is in first going last. Keep going, and whoever gets to the end of the track first wins! At number 5 we have a bit of a mouthful, In the Drawing Room with the Hatchet. In this game, you're murderers! Players are given a secret weapon card, and all players start in the centre square. On a turn, everyone is going to program 3 actions. These can be moving north, south, east, west, or carrying out a different specific action. Everyone carries out their actions simultaneously. Within the first 4 rounds of movement, you must hide your weapon and make a note secretly of its location. Once you have hidden your weapon, you can start searching for the weapons other players have hidden. This is when you can start programming other actions, such as pick up when you think you are on the space of someone's hidden weapon. You can question an opponent if you are in the same room as them, asking them a yes/no question, or hunt, which allows you to search the spaces around you. Then there are some icons on the board that can be activated, like the eye, which allows you to hunt for a weapon through walls, the 5, which grants you extra actions on turns, and a staircase, which moves you to the opposite corner of the house. The final action is to try to kill someone, and can only be carried out once you possess a weapon. Each weapon has unique characteristics in terms of what position you have to be in order to kill someone, such as with the cricket bat, you must be next to them, or the hatchet, which can only land a hit 2 spaces away diagonally. If you get killed, you become a ghost. You're still in the game and can continue to kill others. However, when being a ghost, you are unable to win. Whoever is the last survivor standing wins. And finally, we have Another Life, a resource management game where you are trying to score as many resources as you can. Each player begins with 3 of each resource: coins, health, and knowledge. You start in the shipwreck tile and can move to one of the islands from it. Wherever you end your turn, you're going to trigger the island's resource, where you can spend one of your resources to earn more of a different one. After everyone's first turn, players can now move around the map following the arrows, telling them what direction they are permitted to travel. You can also choose to move additional spaces, but for each space you move, you have to pay the penalty it states printed on the arrow to do so. The other locations give you decisions where you get to share resources out with all the players or force a trade with another by giving them 1 resource, but they must give you the other 2 in return. Then there are the investment cards, which cost a lot to buy but offer much in return to boost your resources. Next is the bank sector. Here you can deposit funds from your supply in the hopes of making them grow later on. For example, if I deposit knowledge, when I return to the bank, it will grow, depending on where it is on the interest track. Say it was on 4, I would gain 2 more knowledge. If I come back on a later turn, it will grow up to 9. I can also make withdrawals, so I can take out my investments once they have matured. Once someone reaches 20 in one of their resources, the game ends, and the winner is the person who has not the most of their best resource, but their second resource. So you have got to learn to diversify. The concept of these 6 games are actually rather impressive. Initially I had my reservations about the idea because it drew up flashing images of those 6 games in one box products, when why have one terrible game when you could have 6 of them? Stay away. No, so we'll go away from him. Memory match, no! To be able to make a game on a piece of card is rather clever, but to produce 6 games that all play rather differently is somewhat impressive. Ellie, the designer, has had to think long and hard with the limited resources available to her, especially in terms of space, layout, room for rules, and the components. The worrying factor would have been that with limited space for rules, the games would have been far too basic and thus resembled games printed on the back of cereal boxes. However, Ellie has been able to produce games that are simple enough to follow but offer a fair amount of challenge and complexity, thus bringing in that engagement. It all comes together really nicely on the page, and I have to say that is quite an achievement. Another massive plus was checking off who exactly these games are targeted at. These games perfectly fit the Dark Imp's mandate, which is to encourage families into gaming. I also think that they're a really good starting point at introducing gamers into the hobby, and I would even go as far to say that 1 or 2 of these games would be enjoyed by the most seasoned of gamers. Now, how has this been possible? Well, I think that accessibility was the key. You see, the designer has taken inspiration from mainstream games and used them as a base. We've got ideas from Guess Who, Battleship, Snakes and Ladders, and Cluedo. Audiences then aren't alienated because familiarity is at the core of the majority of these games. What Ellie does next is build upon these foundations by adding mechanics where critical thinking and skill development can be nourished. Snakes and Ladders was merely a roll and move game where you're at the mercy of the dice. Now, by adding this worker placement mechanic, you've got to think carefully about what moves are going to benefit you, and adds a little bit of cutthroat nature to it as well. Guess How is a teamwork game where you must work cooperatively in order to succeed, so you've got to make those careful decisions. In the Drawing Room with the Hatchet is a great introduction to basic programming. All of these games offer some sort of strategy and forward planning. What's exceptional about this product is that every single game on offer makes you think. In the past 10 years or so, the board game industry has boomed, with more and more people getting into the hobby. These games are a tremendous and cheap way to be introduced to what board games can offer. They teach a variety of game mechanics in a very simple and understandable way, and it's why I place Snakes, Ladders and a Pogo Stick in my top 2 games on offer here. This is because when it comes to worker placement games, I often dread having to teach them to new players because there's often so much to digest before you even take the first turn. What this does is it really simplifies it and teaches it in a very straightforward manner. In fact, if you're new to games and you like any of the mechanics that are on offer here, then there are going to be others out there who can point you in the right direction and give you recommendations to games that play in a similar way that are bigger and glitzier. Yes, it's a gimmick, but you know what? It's fun. Imagine receiving one of these cards with a game printed on it. I don't think anyone has ever received something like that before. Certainly not of this quality. All I can think of are cards with like a word search or Sudoku puzzle printed on them. Now, I'm biased as a gamer, and I think that these are a fantastic idea, and I certainly wouldn't mind receiving one. In the Drawing Room with the Hatchet was my favourite game in the collection by far. It's just simple, brilliant fun that opens itself up easily to making a lot of your own little variants along the way. Now, not every single game is going to be able to live up to its standard. I did enjoy most of them, but unfortunately there was one that just missed the mark. For me, that game was Splinter. It's one of those games that tries to appeal to the different strengths and weaknesses that a classroom of children possess. I find that some of the tasks simply don't gel with the rules. Thinking creatively can be really challenging for some kids, and only using a piece of paper and a pair of scissors can really compound this. Imagine being given the task of creating a diorama on the theme of air, and all you've got is 4 minutes, paper and scissors. The tasks are meant to be creative and fun, when actually a lot of them are rather stressful. In fact, some of them can make you feel pretty dumb because you've produced nothing for all of your efforts simply because you drew a mental blank. Now, if this game made me feel like this, imagine a child in a similar position and what it could do to them. Now, I like the idea of this game. I just think that a number of the tasks and some of the rules need revising because it has the potential to be a really fun one. Now, the quality of the components is pretty limiting, but that's completely understandable. Now, the layout of cards as well create their own restrictions. I strongly suggest that you take a photograph of the rules before you play them, because you don't want to be in the midst of a game and have to rule check and then this happens. Also, I suggest unfolding the greeting or completely cutting it off, because otherwise you get this. I was hoping that they'd move more. That's pretty good. Now, this isn't necessarily a criticism, but it is certainly something to consider. The game that you give someone just might not get played. They may already have an extensive board game collection. However, more than likely, they just might not see the point of it, nor might they get around to playing it at all. The design of the components mean that these games have a very short shelf life. Although I am going to laminate this one because I just enjoy it. I just want to play it more, and I'm not going to give it to anyone. It's that good. So that's the Kickstarter preview for these greetings cards games all done. What an innovative idea. I enjoy most of the games that are on offer here, and I'm certain that you will enjoy them too. What a lovely thing to do, to give one of these to a loved one also. If you're interested in supporting this campaign, then follow the link in here, right, flashing right there, or click on the link below the video. Also, if you're interested, there is a festive edition of these games as well, seeing as Christmas is kind of creeping up gradually around the corner. So, spread the joy of gaming and oh, what's this? What sentiment? What pleasure? I wonder what it says. Dear John, sorry about the memory loss. Get well soon. Love, Uncle Krabs. I don't recall having an Uncle Krabs. And oh, what's this? A game printed on the card?